This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
In the headlines, we begin with Project Volt. President Trump unveils a $12 billion plan to build America's first strategic critical minerals reserve, a move aimed at cutting dependence on China and shielding U.S. industry from supply shocks. Tensions with Iran remain high. Tehran signals openness to diplomacy based on mutual respect, even as U.S. warships move near Iran. The statement comes amid reports secret talks could begin in Turkey. In Washington, a dramatic turn in relations. Colombian President Gustavo Petro arrives at Joint Base Andrews for high-stakes talks with President Trump, marking a sharp shift as both sides pursue a pact for life, despite deep divides on drug policy. A Latin American push at the UN. Chile, backed by Brazil and Mexico, formally nominates Michelle Bachelet for UN Secretary General, a bid to place Latin America at the helm as Antonio Gutierrez prepares to step down. Back home, eyes on ASEAN leadership. President Marcos Jr. says the Philippines' 2026 ASEAN chairship must deliver tangible gains, focusing on jobs, business, and development in the BARM. But new polls signal a shift. President Marcos' ratings slip while Vice President Sara Duterte gains ground. The latest Okta research survey shows changing public trust and performance scores. And finally, a night of firsts in Los Angeles. The 68th Grammy Awards make history with K-pop breaking new ground and a Spanish-language album winning Album of the Year for the first time. I am Faye Agustin. Newsline World starts now. President Donald Trump has unveiled a $12 billion initiative to create the nation's first strategic critical minerals reserve. Dubbed Project Volt, the move is a direct effort to slash U.S. reliance on Chinese imports and shield American manufacturers from global supply shocks. Carla Abellana reports.
Standing in the Oval Office alongside titans of industry, the U.S. President Donald Trump framed the new reserve as an economic insurance policy. Unlike the existing national defense stockpile, which is restricted to military use, Project Volt is designed specifically to keep civilian factories running during emergencies. The ceremony included General Motors CEO Mary Barra and Ivanhoe Mines, Executive Co-Chairman Robert Friedland, representing the companies that both produce and rely on these vital materials.
Announcing the creation of the U.S. Strategic Critical Minerals Reserve, the first ever stockpile of critical minerals that you've been hearing so much about. We have the greatest experts on earth behind me. For civilian use in times of emergency, we're pleased to be joined on this occasion by General Motors CEO Mary Barra, who is as well as founder and executive co-chairman of Ivanhoe Mines, Robert Friedland.
The reserve will be funded by a $10 billion loan from the Export-Import Bank, combined with $2 billion in private sector capital. Major players like Boeing, GE Vernova, and Stellantis have already signed on to participate. The reserve is expected to be headquartered at the Hawthorne Army Depot in Nevada, utilizing its vast, secure storage and rail access. The stockpile will focus on minerals like gallium, cobalt, and lithium, essential for everything from smartphones to jet engines. Officials say the project will ensure that critical minerals are available for industry, even during global market disruptions, and to generate profits for taxpayers through loan interest. Trump highlighted ongoing efforts by his administration to boost domestic mining, expedite federal permitting, and secure international minerals deals, describing the new reserve as a historic initiative for American industry. For God in my beloved Philippines, Carla Abellana, SMNI News.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi declared on Monday that Tehran remains open to diplomacy, but only on the basis of mutual respect. The statement comes as U.S. President Donald Trump confirmed that the world's most powerful warships are positioned near Iran, even as secret talks between the two rivals are reportedly set to begin in Turkey. Jane Cognita reports.
Marking the 47th anniversary of the Iranian Revolution at the mausoleum of Ruhollah Khomeini, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi delivered a message of both defiance and dialogue. Araghchi claimed that the United States is only returning to the negotiating table because its recent plot, referring to the deadly unrest that swept Iran in December and January, has failed. He warned that while Iran is ready for diplomacy, it will not respond to threats or coercion.
بعد از شکست در این توطئه اخیر حالا اونها هستن که مجدد حرف از دیپلماسی میزنن و ما هم همیشه آماده دیپلماسی بودیم به شرط آنکه از موضع برابر باشه، به شرط آنکه با احترام متقابل باشه و برای تأمین منافع متقابل. با مردم ایران باید با احترام حرف زد. هر که با احترام حرف بزنه با احترام هم جواب میگیره و هر که با تهدید و زور حرف بزنه با همان زبان پاسخ میگیره.
The plot Araghchi reference refers to weeks of protests and riots that Iranian authorities claim were fueled by foreign militants. Official figures now state that over 3,100 people were killed in the unrest. Tehran maintains that the vast majority of the deceased were security personnel or civilians caught in the crossfire of an unfair war backed by Washington and Israel. Despite the heavy rhetoric, reports suggest that high-level talks between Tehran and Washington could begin in Turkey within days.
Well, we're talking about that. We have ships heading to Iran right now, big ones, biggest and the best. And we have talks going on with Iran. We'll see how it all works out.
And on Iran, sir, can you say what your threshold military action is?
Well, I can't tell you what I'm going to do because right now, we have a tremendous force going there, just like we did in Venezuela, even bigger. And they'll be there soon. And I'd like to see a deal negotiated. I don't know that that's going to happen. But, I mean, if I knew, I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't tell you. I'd be very foolish if I would tell you. But right now we're talking to them. We're talking to Iran. And if we could work something out, that'd be great. And if we can't, probably bad things will happen.
The shadow of military action remains large. President Trump has deployed a naval force even larger than the one used in the recent Venezuela operation, positioning the biggest and the best ships within striking distance of the Iranian coast. The U.S. is pushing for a new deal that addresses Iran's nuclear program and its regional influence, using maximum pressure to force concessions. As Araghchi and Trump trade warnings, the world watches Turkey. The coming days will determine if this massive military posturing leads to a historic breakthrough or a catastrophic escalation in the Persian Gulf. This has been Jane Cognita, Global Citizen Correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
The Rafah crossing between Egypt and the Gaza Strip has begun a trial reopening with the launch of the high-tech Regavim security corridor. While the move marks a key step in U.S. President Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan, tensions remain volatile as Israeli forces carried out a punitive demolition in the occupied West Bank overnight. Andrea Santos reports.
The gates of the Rafah crossing swung open this Monday, but with a new high-tech layer of Israeli surveillance. The Israeli military has officially operationalized the Regavim corridor, a screening axis where security services conduct identity checks and luggage inspections against pre-approved lists. On this first day of trial operations, 50 people departed for Gaza, while another 50 arrived in Egypt. The reopening is a central pillar of Phase 2 of the Trump plan, which aims to transition from a ceasefire to Gaza's full reconstruction. But while some borders are opening, others are being leveled. In the West Bank town of Halhul, thick plumes of smoke rose after the IDF detonated the apartment of Mahmoud Youssef Abed. The military says Abed was responsible for a deadly armed attack in July 2025 that killed an Israeli citizen. Palestinian media reported that residents were forced out with stun grenades before explosive engineering units demolished the structure. Tensions in the territory have stayed at a breaking point since late 2023, with over 759 Palestinians killed by Israeli forces or settlers, while more than 26 Israelis have lost their lives in attacks during the same period. As the Trump administration pushes for disarmament and a technocratic government in Gaza, the ongoing violence in the West Bank serves as a stark reminder of the hurdles facing any long-term stability in the region. This has been Andrea Santos, your Global Citizen Correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Up next, ICE and ASEAN leadership. President Marcos Jr. says the Philippines' 2026 ASEAN chairship must deliver tangible gains, focusing on jobs, business, and development in the BARM. But new polls signal a shift. President Marcos' ratings slip while Vice President Sara Duterte gains ground. The latest Okta research survey shows changing public trust and performance scores. More news when Newsline World returns.
Pasasaan pa ang kalayaan kung ang mga alipin ngayon mang-aalipin bukas?
Ibigin mo ang iyong bayan ng sunod kay Bathala, sa iyong kapurihan at higit sa lahat sa iyong sarili.
Hindi natin mapapalaya ang ating mga sarili maliban kung sumulong tayo na nagkakaisa sa iisang hangarin.
Ang tunay na makabayan ay ang tumutupad ng pagpapabuti ng kanyang mga kapwa, gaano man kaaba ang kanyang katungkulan. Naway magsilbing paalala ang kanilang mga salita upang lalo nating mahalin at tapat na paglingkuran ang minamahal nating inang bayan.
Isang pindot lang, pwede kang maka-jackpot. Mukhang masaya at easy money lang. Sa murang halaga, pwede ka na tumaya sa online gambling at e-casino apps. Mayroong sabong, slot machines, mahjong, poker at iba pa. Kailangan mo lang ng smartphone, e-wallet at internet. Pero ang aliw na ito, unti-unting nagiging bitag para sa mga Pilipino. Lalo na kung ang paborito mong artista o influencer ang mukha ng app. Mas madaling makaengganyo, diba? Parang safe naman kasi may kilalang mukha. Pero sa likod ng ngiti, sugal pa rin ang itinutulak. At syempre, mas madali ring itago ang pagkalulong sa bisyong ito. Walang pisikal na kasino o pasugalan, walang kaharap, walang accountability, kaya't mas lumalala ang adiksyon. Dagdag pa rito, maraming online gambling apps at walang regulasyon. Sa likod ng mga makukulay na interface at papremyo, nakatago ang problemang bumabalot ngayon sa bansa. Ang pagkalulong ng maraming Pilipino sa online gambling. Pwede maglaro kahit saan, kahit kailan, kahit sino, bata man o matanda, pwedeng malulong. Ayon sa mga eksperto, ang pagkakalulong sa online gambling ay nagdudulot ng matinding stress at anxiety, pagkakabaon sa utang, pagkawasak ng pamilya, pagkawala ng tiwala sa sarili. At tulad ng ibang bisyo, may mga senyales ito tulad ng hindi makapagpigil kahit walang pera, palihim na tumataya, pagpapabaya sa trabaho, pamilya o sarili. Sa bawat taya, may mga taong tunay na kumikita, mga malalaking negosyante at investors na negosyo ang bisyo ng masa. nila. Para sa kanila, perang pumapasok lang ito. Pero para sa ordinaryong Pilipino, kabuhayan at relasyon ang nauubos. At ang masakit, tila matagal itong nahayaan. Hindi ito naging prioridad ng mga nakaupo sa taas hanggang sa sobrang lumala at halos naapektuhan na ang buong komunidad. Ngayon, sa dami ng nalulung at sa laki ng pinsalang naidulot, sa kapalalong umugong ang mga panukalang batas para higpitan ng online gambling, gaya ng pagbabawal sa paggamit ng e-wallets para tumaya, pagtaas ng minimum bet, mas mahigpit na identity verification, pag-block ng mga illegal na gambling sites, at bawasan o ipagbawal ang mga ads na target ang kabataan. Maaari itong magmukhang laro lang, pero sa katotohanan, isa itong sugal sa kinabukasan. Ang kita na dapat sa mga pangunahing pangangailangan o ipon na uubos sa sugal. At sa mundo ng online gambling, mas madali kang matalo kaysa manalo. Huwag hayaang sugal ang magdikta sa iyong buhay. Isang paalala mula sa SMNI.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. stressed that the Philippines ASEAN chairship in 2026 must deliver clear and direct benefits to the Filipino people. President Catarong reports.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. led an interagency meeting at Malacanang on Monday to review the country's preparedness for hosting the ASEAN Summit 2026, underscoring that it should bring tangible and concrete benefits not only to Filipinos but also to the wider region. During the meeting, key government priorities were discussed, including job generation, support for small businesses, improvements in digital services, and the implementation of programs that directly address the needs of the people. According to Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary and Paras Press Officer Claire Castro, the Philippines is fully prepared to assume its role as ASEAN chair. The president also highlighted ASEAN's important role in supporting the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or BARM, particularly in the upcoming Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines East ASEAN Growth Area or BIMPE at the meeting to be held alongside the ASEAN Summit. Relevant government agencies continue to closely coordinate to ensure the smooth, safe, and orderly hosting of the summits and related activities. Recently, the Philippines successfully hosted the ASEAN Foreign Ministers Meeting Retreat and the ASEAN Tourism Forum in Cebu. As one of ASEAN's founding members, the Philippines will host the 40th and 49th ASEAN Summits this year, marking the country's fourth time to host a major international gathering. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Creseling Catarong, SMNI News.
The Department of Justice says former Ako Bicol Representative Saldico's plan to become a state witness in the impeachment complaint against President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will not affect the plunder complaint filed against him. Meanwhile, the Justice Department has yet to issue a resolution on whether the case will be elevated to court. Margot Gonzalez has the details.
The Department of Justice or DOJ has not released any resolution regarding the plunder complaint against Saldico, which remains under investigation. The complaint was filed with the agency on January 5th, and hearings have already been conducted with the DOJ panel. So far, the former lawmaker has not submitted any counter-affidavit. According to DOJ spokesperson Attorney Polo Martinez, the investigation is ongoing and the prosecutors are following the set 60-day timeline for a resolution.
There are pending incidents currently, so it's still under investigation. Okay, as to when po ma-submit yung re-release yung resolution, let's remember na may 60 days po from the time that the case was filed for the prosecutors to resolve the matter. There are so many moving parts po kasi. So, and that applies not just to the whole flood control issue, but to each and every case na pending before us related to that, to those anomalies. We do not need to wait for Mr. Zaldico to return here. If he does not wish to file his counter-affidavit, that's his choice. The prosecutors will not be bound by his decision because, again, we're working with a timeline of 60 days.
Regarding Co's plan to testify in the impeachment case against President Bongbong Marcos Jr., the DOJ clarified that this will not affect the plunder complaint.
Different matter na po yun in that case, no? These cases are done individually, independent sila of each other. So if he does testify in that regard, that doesn't affect what goes on here with respect to the plunder case against him.
Meanwhile, former Bulacan District Engineer Henry Alcantara remains a respondent in the plunder complaint despite being admitted into the Witness Protection Program for the flood control scandal.
Kahit admitted witness na po si Mr. Henry Alcantara, that does not absolve him or excuse him from submitting his counter affidavit. He will still have to fight his defenses.
For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Mark Gonzalez, SMNA News.
The Office of the Ombudsman admitted that it is having difficulty securing copies of the Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth, or SALN, of lawmakers linked to the flood control scandal. Sheena Turner reports.
The Office of the Ombudsman continues its in-depth investigation into several incumbent lawmakers over controversial flood control projects. Included in the probe are the so-called contractors, or congressmen who own construction companies that have secured large-scale projects from the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, based on records from the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI. A total of 1,301 projects worth 92.28 billion pesos were awarded to these companies from 2016 to 2024. According to Ombudsman Jesus Crispin Remulla, several congressmen are already under preliminary investigation. To fast-track the probe, the Ombudsman also needs as additional evidence the Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth, or SALN, of those involved. However, Remulla admitted that his investigation team is encountering difficulties in obtaining the lawmaker SALNs. He said the House Secretary General told the Ombudsman investigation teams that plenary approval is required before the documents can be released, something Remulla strongly disagrees with.
Walang ganun eh. Hindi dapat padali sa plenary. Nasa Congress ako dati. Kabisado ko yung plenary. Hindi namin ginagawa yun. Marami na imbestigahan sa PIDAP nun. Hindi dumaan sa plenary.
Because of this, Ombudsman Remulla said he will write to House Speaker Bogie D to complain about the process of securing SALNs. The Ombudsman will also look into the possible conflict of interest of House Secretary General Cheloy Garafil, citing her previous employment with contractors now under investigation.
Nagtrabaho na yan dati ron. Tingnan mo yung kanyang buy data. Sa house. Nasa house dati yan. She used to work in the house. Marami kasi nagre-reklamo, siguro congressman, ayaw nila maimbestigahan. Pero tatamaan naman sila eh, kahit anong gawin mo.
As of this writing, House Secretary General Garafil has yet to issue a statement regarding Ombudsman Remulla's allegations. For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Sheena Torno, SMNI News.
Trust and performance ratings of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. fell, while the ratings of Vice President Sara Duterte increased for the fourth quarter of 2025, according to the latest Tugon ng Masa survey by Octa Research. Angel Pastor has the news.
Trust ratings of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. dropped by 9 points based on the latest results of Octa Research's Tugon ng Masa survey for the fourth quarter of 2025. According to the survey conducted from December 16 to 2025, the president's rating fell from 57% to 48% compared to the previous quarter. Although Marcos Jr. still gained majority trust in Balanced Luzon, the number of those who trust him remains low in the Metro Manila and Mindanao. The president's performance rating also slightly declined from 54% to 51%, while the percentage of those who do not trust him or are undecided about his leadership increased. Meanwhile, Vice President Sara Duterte's trust rating rose from 51% to 53%. The vice president's performance rating also went up from 49% to 54%. She received the highest trust rating in Mindanao. The Octa survey was conducted among 1,200 adult male and female respondents. For God and my beloved Philippines, Angel Pastor, SMNI News.
When we return, in Washington, a dramatic turn in relations. Colombian President Gustavo Petro arrives at Joint Base Andrews for high-stake talks with President Trump, marking a sharp shift as both sides pursue a pact for life despite deep divides on drug policy. And a Latin American push at the UN. Chile, backed by Brazil and Mexico, formally nominates Michelle Bachelet for UN Secretary General, a bid to place Latin America at the helm as Antonio Gutierrez prepares to step down. More news after this break.
Hoy, magnanakaw! Tingnan! Pulis ka! Hala, magnanakaw!
Magnanakaw! Magnanakaw!
Hoy, magnanakaw!
Magnanakaw! Magnanakaw!
Ano kayang gagawin ko? Ipamimigay ko yung konti para tumigil sila sa pag-iingay.
Pare, magnanakaw, namimigay ng pera.
Ito ang sayo.
Wow! Ang bait ng magnanakaw!
Ito naman sayo.
Kuya, yung
eto
share ko! Sana
Huwag ka nang maingay. Eto pa. Tama na yan. Nakikipalato lang kayo eh. Huwag nang maingay. Diba? Konti lang pinamigay ko, mabait na ako. Tahimik na sila. Easy. Ngayon, pwede ko na tong suluhin.
Masaya ang mga tao, pero tama po ba ito? Di po ba ang nakikinabang sa magnanakaw ay kasabwat ng magnanakaw?
Ikaw, kinukonsenti mo ba ang legal na korupsyon?
Ikaw ba ay namomroblema sa taas ng electric bill buwan-buwan? Huwag mag-alala, narito ang ilang paraan upang makatipid sa kuryente. Patayin ang mga ilaw at appliances kapag hindi ginagamit. Sa halip ay gumamit ng natural na liwanag upang makatipid sa kuryente. Tanggalin sa saksakan ang mga appliances kung hindi ginagamit. Iwasan ang paggamit ng maraming appliances ng sabay-sabay. Gumamit ng LED bulbs. Ito ay mas tipid sa kuryente kumpara sa mga incandescent at fluorescent bulbs. Regular na linisin ang mga appliances tulad ng electric fan, aircon vents at refrigerator. Magkaroon ng takdang araw sa isang linggo sa pamamalansya at paglalaba. Gumamit ng energy-efficient appliances. Tandaan, maging wais sa paggamit ng kuryente upang makatipid para mas gumaan ang buhay. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
Colombian President Gustavo Petro has arrived at Joint Base Andrews for a historic and high-stakes meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. The visit marks a dramatic shift in relations after months of bitter insults, sanctions, and military threats as both leaders seek a pact for life amid disagreements over drug policy and regional conflicts. Jane Cognita is back for more news.
The Colombian Air Force One touched down on Camp Springs, Maryland on Monday, carrying a leader who until very recently was a target of intense Washington pressure. President Gustavo Petro was welcomed by U.S. officials at Joint Base Andrews ahead of the scheduled Tuesday meeting at the White House. This face-to-face encounter follows a sudden easing of tensions that began with a phone call where Petro explained Colombia's new approach to the drug trade and other regional disputes.
Pero el martes, cuando esté reunido con el presidente en todas las plazas públicas, hacer la cadena de los afectos, la certeza del amor, porque finalmente nos protege es el amor y la protección entre nosotros mismos y las energías inteligentes que representan la luz y el hecho de que tenemos muchas razones para lograr un pacto por la vida en todas las Américas y ojalá en el mundo y ojalá dentro de Colombia, que es lo que más nos interesa hoy.
The road to Washington has been paved with hostility. President Trump had previously imposed sanctions and famously labeled Petro a sick man. However, the U.S. leader noted a significant change in Petro's demeanor following the recent military operation in Venezuela. Speaking to reporters, Trump expressed optimism for the meeting, emphasizing that his primary focus remains the flow of narcotics into the United States.
He was certainly critical before that, but somehow after the Venezuelan raid, he became very nice. He changed his attitude very much. So, I look forward to seeing him. He's coming in. We're going to be talking about drugs because tremendous amounts of drugs come out of his country. And I look forward to see. We're going to have a good meeting. Yeah.
The Tuesday meeting is expected to focus on three critical pillars: the potential suspension of U.S. sanctions, a shared strategy for regional migration, and a realistic drug policy that moves away from total eradication towards sustainable development from rural farmers.
¿Con qué noticias espera volver de este viaje, presidente?
Bueno, con buenas noticias, vamos a ver.
As Petro prepares to enter the Oval Office, the eyes of Latin America are on Washington. The outcome of this meeting will determine if the intelligent energies Petro spoke of can truly bridge the gap between a conservative American administration and Colombia's first leftist president. This has been Jane Cognita, Global Citizen Correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Outgoing Chilean President Gabriel Boric has officially announced the candidacy of former President Michelle Bachelet for the position of United Nations Secretary General. The bid, submitted jointly with Brazil and Mexico, represents a powerful Latin American push to lead the global body as Antonio Gutierrez prepares to step down. More on this from Carlo de la Peña.
Ciudadanos del mundo.
From the historic halls of La Moneda Palace, President Gabriel Boric declared a significant move for Latin American diplomacy. Chile, alongside regional giants Brazil and Mexico, has formally submitted the name of Michelle Bachelet Heria as a candidate to lead the United Nations. Boric emphasized that the joint nomination reflects a shared will to strengthen multilateralism and ensure that the voices of the Caribbean and Latin America are heard on the global stage.
Tengo el honor y el orgullo desde este Palacio de la Moneda, desde Santiago de Chile, anunciar a las y los ciudadanos de nuestra patria y el mundo que hoy oficializaremos en la ciudad de Nueva York la candidatura de la expresidenta de Chile, Michelle Bachelet Heria, a la Secretaría General de las Naciones Unidas.
Bachelet is no stranger to the halls of the UN. Having served 2 terms as Chile's president, she was also the first executive director of UN Women and the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Accepting the nomination, Bachelet stressed that the organization must modernize and become more results-oriented to tackle modern crises like climate change and technological disruption.
Me siento muy honrada de ser candidata a la Secretaría General no solo de Chile, sino también de Brasil y de México. Agradezco el respaldo a esta candidatura de Estado y asumo la tremenda responsabilidad que significa. En un contexto de crisis, conflictos, cambio climático, profundas desigualdades, disrupción tecnológica y desconfianza institucional, las Naciones Unidas deben renovarse para seguir siendo legítima, más moderna, eficiente, transparente y orientada a resultados, poniendo a las personas en el centro de su quehacer.
The race for the top spot at the UN comes as Antonio Guterres prepares to finish his second term on December 31, 2026. While the official selection process begins on January 1, 2027, this early joint nomination by 3 of Latin America's most populous nations is seen as a strategic move to build early momentum. The final decision rests with the Security Council and the General Assembly. If successful, Bachelet would become the first woman and the first Chilean to hold the most powerful diplomatic post in the world. With the backing of Lula da Silva and Claudia Sheinbaum, her candidacy marks a rare moment of regional coordination, aiming to put people at the center of global governance. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
Tensions in the South China Sea flared after Chinese warplanes flew over Wangyandao, also known as Scarborough Shoal, following recent joint military exercises by the United States and the Philippines. Jean Domingo will give us the details.
Fighter jets conducted a display of aerial strength over Huangyandao, also known as Car Border Shoal, on February 1st, following joint military exercises between the United States and the Philippines. The aerial activity came as Beijing continues to assert its territorial claims in the South China Sea, an area also claimed by several neighboring countries. The U.S.-Philippines exercise held in the final week of January focused on maritime security, air operations, and military interoperability in the region. Manila and Washington viewed the Chinese flights as a show of force, seen as a response to the expanded scope of the joint drills. Security analysts say the latest aerial displays highlighted the intensifying strategic rivalry in the South China Sea and underscored the need for sustained dialogue to prevent miscalculation. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Jean Domingo, SM9 News.
The 68th Annual Grammy Awards brought glitz, glamour, and history to Los Angeles. From K-pop breaking barriers to a new king of hip-hop and the very first Spanish-language album of the year. It was a night full of unforgettable firsts. Blake Ann reports.
The night belonged to history makers, but perhaps no win felt more like a cultural shift than the victory of Golden from the Netflix animated hit K-pop Demon Hunters. Performed by the fictional group Huntrix, voiced by real-life artists EJ, Audrey Nuna, and Ray Ami, the track took home Best Song Written for Visual Media. It is officially the first K-pop song to win a Grammy in the ceremony's nearly 70-year history. The film's success continues to grow, with a sequel already scheduled for release in 2029. Transitioning to the main stage, the spotlight turned to the future of the industry as Olivia Dean was named Best New Artist. The British singer's win extends a remarkable 9-year streak of female winners in this category. Dean, whose hit album The Art of Loving reached #1 internationally, delivered an emotional acceptance speech reflecting on her heritage. The evening also belonged to a legend solidifying his legacy. Kendrick Lamar entered the night with a field-leading 9 nominations and walked away with 5 wins, including Best Rap Album for GNX and Record of the Year for Luther. With a career total of 27 gramophones, Lamar officially surpassed Jay-Z and Kanye West to become the most awarded hip-hop artist in Grammy history. The star-studded night at Crypto.com Arena also delivered show-stopping performances and historic wins across genres, highlighting the power and influence of both veteran icons and rising stars on the global stage. And that's all for now. I'm Blake Ann, bringing you the latest showbiz.
What began as a simple taxi ride for an ice cream treat turned into a moment of pure Mumbai magic. A Mumbai resident got the surprise of her life after discovering that her fellow passenger was the owner of one of the city's most iconic ice cream parlors, K. Rostam and Company. Stella Maurice has the story.
The heartwarming encounter, now viral on social media, was shared by Instagram user Anshika Tripathi. In the video, Anshika recounts how she offered her taxi seat to an elderly woman was headed to the famous ice cream shop near Marine Drive. During the encounter, they chatted about life in Mumbai and their favorite flavors when the woman was taken by surprise. The elderly passenger revealed that she is the owner of the ice cream parlor. Upon reaching the destination, the owner walked her inside K. Rostam and Company, along with stories behind the recipes that have made the establishment beloved for generations. Since the video of the encounter was posted online, the story has sparked widespread reaction from netizens, many of whom praise the casual warmth of the interaction as peak Mumbai magic, noting how spontaneous moments like this reflect the city's spirit. Located on Veer Nariman Road, K. Rostam and Company has long been cherished for its old-school ice cream sandwiches and unique flavors, drawing crowds of both locals and visitors eager to indulge in its nostalgic offerings.
Established in the 1950s by Reki Rostam, the parlor quickly became famous for its ice cream served between freshly baked bread, a concept that was both innovative and delicious. Over the decades, it has remained a beloved spot for Mumbaikers and tourists alike, serving handcrafted ice cream in a variety of flavors that evoke a sense of nostalgia in the city. This has been Stella Maris, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
In our latest sports update, Filipina tennis star Alex Ayala has vaulted to a career-high world ranking, marking a major milestone for Philippine sports. However, the mood is far more tense on the ice as Spanish figure skater Thomas Laurent Guarino Sabate faces a last-minute Olympic crisis after being barred from using his signature routine music. Carlo de la Peña reports.
Coming off a productive run across tournaments in New Zealand, Australia and the Philippines, Alex Ayala continued her steady rise on the WTA Tour. The 20-year-old gained 4 spots from number 49 to number 45, collecting 1,163 ranking points after a semi-final finish at the ASB Classic in Auckland and a main draw debut at the Australian Open. Ayala also captured the exhibition title at Melbourne's Kooyong Classic and reached the quarterfinals of the Philippine Women's Open, her first professional tournament on home soil. Now heading into the WTA 500 Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open, Ayala will compete in both singles and doubles. She partners Indonesian standout Janice Jen in doubles, with the pair set to face Filipina-Canadian Leila Fernandez and France Kristina Mladenovic in their opening match. In singles, Ayala opens her Abu Dhabi campaign against Turkey's Zeynep Sönmez, ranked number 112 in the world. With Ayala prepares for her next match, Spanish champion Thomas Laurent Guarino Sabate is in a race against time to save his Olympic debut. Just days before the 2026 Winter Olympics kickoff in Milan on February 6, rights holder Universal Pictures denied permission for Sabate to use his Minions soundtrack. The 26-year-old skater, a 6-time national champion, has performed the routine in a yellow shirt and blue overalls throughout the season. Despite submitting the music through the official Click and Clear system back in August, he was informed of the copyright issue only last Friday. Sabate described the timing as incredibly disappointing, but has vowed to deliver his best on the Olympic stage. He now has only days to revise his short program before the men's event begins on February 10th. The International Skating Union said it is aware of the situation, while the International Olympic Committee has been contacted for comment. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo de la Peña bringing you the latest sports news.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the words of the sun. When God is with you, nobody can go against you. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I am Faith Agustin. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.